Zeus. If ancient Greece had a corporate ladder, Zeus wasn't just the CEO, he owned the entire company. King of the gods, ruler of the skies, and the guy with the ultimate weather remote. One moment sunshine, the next a lightning storm. Zeus was basically the world's first meteorologist, except his forecasts always came true. His trademark weapon? The thunderbolt. Imagine holding a lightning strike in your hand and throwing it like a dodgeball at anyone who annoyed you. That was Zeus on a casual Tuesday, and just in case the thunderbolts weren't enough, he also had the power to shapeshift. He could turn into animals, humans, or even objects. Talk about having the ultimate disguise kit. Now, as the head god, Zeus married Hera, the goddess of marriage. Sounds poetic, right? Except Zeus had one major flaw. He couldn't keep his divine eyes, or the rest of himself, to one woman. From nymphs to mortals to goddesses, Zeus had more love affairs than there are episodes of The Bachelor. Each romance ended up creating drama, children, or straight-up wars. But despite being a notorious player, Zeus wasn't just about romance. He held the ultimate veto power in Greek mythology. Storms, wars, fate, or just keeping the Olympian family from killing each other, Zeus was always in the middle of the action. Protector, punisher, prankster, Zeus was the all-in-one package deal. Just don't marry him. Hera, being the queen of the gods, sounds glamorous, unless your husband is Zeus. Hera, goddess of marriage, women, and childbirth, had the divine resume of a family protector, but her personal life was the definition of irony. Married to the king of the gods, yet constantly dealing with his endless flings, Hera was basically living in the world's first soap opera. Now Hera was no pushover. She had the power to bless or curse marriages, control fertility, and protect women. But if you happened to catch Zeus's wandering attention, your days were numbered. Instead of punishing her husband, because, let's face it, you don't just ground the god of the sky, Hera went after the other women and their children. Brutal. Rivals were turned into animals, monsters were unleashed, and entire lives were ruined just because Zeus couldn't behave himself. Hera was the original, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Still, Hera wasn't just about jealousy. She was also a fierce guardian of families, women in childbirth, and the sanctity of marriage. If you lived in ancient Greece and wanted a happy home life, you'd definitely send a prayer her way. Just don't be on Zeus's side piece list, or Hera would make you regret ever being born. Poseidon. Picture the ocean as one giant kingdom. Now imagine one god running it all, storms, waves, and sea monsters included. That's Poseidon, brother of Zeus and Hades, and ruler of the seas. When the three brothers split the universe, Zeus got the sky, Hades got the underworld, and Poseidon scored the oceans. Considering the earth is mostly water, Poseidon probably walked away thinking, yeah, I got the best deal. His iconic weapon was the trident, a massive three-pronged spear that could do it all. Whip up hurricanes, sink ships, trigger earthquakes, or even create new islands. Basically, if the earth ever shook or the seas roared, Poseidon was behind it. Think of him as the godly mix between a demolition expert and a construction worker. But Poseidon wasn't all doom and gloom. He also created rivers, springs, and lakes, vital for life on Earth. He was married to Aphrodite, a sea goddess, and had children like Triton, the original merman prince. Of course, like Zeus, Poseidon had his share of affairs too. Apparently, being an Olympian god automatically came with a cheating clause in the marriage contract. One thing's certain, when you stepped into the ocean in ancient Greece, you weren't just going for a swim, you were entering Poseidon's territory. Better hope he was in a good mood, or your fishing trip might turn into a natural disaster. Hades. If Zeus ran the skies and Poseidon ruled the oceans, then Hades got the least glamorous division, the underworld. But don't picture him as some villainous devil. Hades wasn't evil. He was more like the strict manager of the world's biggest afterlife system. His job? Making sure the dead stayed dead and everyone followed the rules. Yes, he was gloomy, but can you blame him? If your full-time job was supervising ghosts for eternity, you wouldn't exactly be the life of the party either. Still, Hades was fair. He didn't play favorites, didn't punish without cause, and treated every soul equally. In fact, many myths paint him as one of the most just gods. Of course, Hades is best known for his relationship with Persephone, goddess of spring. The infamous kidnapping story goes that he carried her off to the underworld to be his queen. While it started with abduction, their union eventually explained the seasons. Persephone spends part of the year in the underworld, winter, and the rest with her mother, Demeter, spring and summer. Hades also had some of the coolest accessories. His helmet of invisibility made him vanish at will, and his watchdog Cerberus, a three-headed beast, kept intruders out and souls in. Sure, his kingdom was dark and eerie, but without Hades, life and death wouldn't be balanced. He may not have been loved, but he was absolutely essential. Artemis. If you were into hiking, hunting, or just vibing under the stars, Artemis would have been your goddess bestie. Twin sister of Apollo and goddess of the hunt, wilderness, and animals, Artemis was basically the ultimate outdoors woman. Bow in hand, moon overhead, and deer at her side. While Apollo was busy with music and sunshine, Artemis ruled the night and forests. She wasn't just about hunting, though. Artemis was fiercely protective of young women and children, acting as a divine guardian of innocence. Think of her as part wildlife ranger, part camp counselor, part warrior queen. Girls who served in her temple were even called little bears, which is adorable and terrifying at the same time. Imagine Girl Scouts, but instead of selling cookies, you're practicing archery and communing with wolves. But here's the twist. Artemis was also famous for her independence. She swore never to marry and was quick to punish anyone who crossed her boundaries. Hunters who disrespected her or dared spy on her while bathing usually ended up cursed, or worse. Let's just say, if Artemis blocked your number, you'd never be seen again. So whether you were praying for a safe childbirth, a good hunt, or protection on your journey, Artemis was your gal. Fierce, wild, and untamed, she was the goddess who kept nature, and anyone who dared challenge her, completely in check. Apollo, if Greek mythology had an overachiever award, Apollo would win it every single time. God of music, poetry, prophecy, healing, archery, and the sun, this guy collected divine job titles like they were trading cards. Handsome, talented, and ridiculously popular, Apollo was basically the poster boy of Mount Olympus. Every day, Apollo drove his golden chariot across the sky, bringing light to the world. When he wasn't lighting up the heavens, he was strumming his lyre, charming both mortals and gods with his music. He was also the leader of the Muses, the goddesses of arts and science, which made him the original creative director of the universe. But Apollo wasn't just about sunshine and songs. He was also the god of prophecy, and his oracle at Delphi was the most famous hotline for the future in ancient Greece. People traveled miles just to hear confusing riddles about their destiny, basically the divine version of vague fortune cookies. Of course, Apollo had his flaws. His love life was messy, to say the least. One of his most famous pursuits was Daphne, a nymph who wanted nothing to do with him. When Apollo wouldn't quit, Daphne begged her father for help and got turned into a laurel tree. Heartbroken, Apollo made the laurel his sacred symbol. So if you've ever seen a laurel crown, thank one very awkward god crush. Brilliant, beautiful, and just a little dramatic, Apollo was the ultimate multitasker of Olympus. Ares now. Now, if Apollo was the golden boy of Olympus, Ares was the hot-headed rebel. God of war and violence, son of Zeus and Hera, and the family's official problem child. Even his parents didn't really like him. Zeus once admitted he'd throw Ares out of Olympus if he wasn't his son. Ouch. Unlike Athena, who represented strategy and smart warfare, Ares embodied pure chaos on the battlefield. He loved bloodshed, screaming armies, and the thrill of combat. Subtle tactics? Careful planning? Not his style. Ares was the guy who charged into a fight just to hear the clash of swords. Here's the kicker, though. For the god of war, Ares had a pretty lousy track record. He was defeated by mortals, humiliated by giants, and constantly overshadowed by Athena. But when he did show up on the battlefield, he was terrifying, muscular, unstoppable, and fueled by rage. Off the battlefield, Ares wasn't exactly improving his reputation. He had a scandalous affair with Aphrodite, the goddess of love, despite her being married to Hephaestus. The other gods even caught the two of them in a trap and laughed at them. Imagine being roasted by your entire immortal family. That's Ares' love life in a nutshell. Unpopular but unavoidable, Ares was the god nobody wanted at their dinner party, but everyone needed when war broke out. Athena was basically the brainiac warrior of Mount Olympus. Goddess of wisdom, strategy, and crafts, she wasn't just strong, she was smart about it. If you had her on your team, you didn't just win battles, you won them with style and minimal casualties. Born directly from Zeus's forehead, after he swallowed her pregnant mother, long story, Athena came into the world fully grown and fully armored. Talk about skipping childhood. From the start, she represented intelligence, creativity, and discipline. Athena was the patron goddess of Athens. Yes, the city literally named after her. When she and Poseidon competed for the honor, Poseidon offered a salty spring, but Athena gave the olive tree. Olives meant food, oil, and wood, so the Athenians chose her. Honestly, it was the most practical gift-giving competition in history. But Athena wasn't just about farming. She was a fierce warrior who fought alongside heroes like Odysseus, Perseus, and Hercules, always providing clever strategies and divine support. Unlike Ares, who dove into battle blindly, Athena played the long game. She was the chess master of Olympus, always 3 moves ahead. Beyond war, Athena also ruled over weaving, crafts, and wisdom. She could help you win a war, solve a riddle, or even make a killer tapestry. Calm, rational, and powerful, Athena wasn't just a goddess, she was the embodiment of intelligence in action. Demeter. If the ancient Greeks had a goddess who doubled as both farmer and protective mom, that was Demeter. As the goddess of agriculture, harvest, and fertility, she was the reason crops grew, bread baked, and people didn't starve. No Demeter, no dinner. Simple as that. But she's best known for her role in one of the most famous myths, the kidnapping of her daughter, Persephone. When Hades dragged Persephone down to the underworld, Demeter's grief was so overwhelming that she stopped crops from growing. Whole seasons turned into famine. Zeus eventually had to step in and negotiate a deal. Persephone would spend part of the year with Hades and part with her mother. That's how the Greeks explained the seasons: spring and summer for Persephone's return, fall and winter for her absence. Beyond crops and seasons, Demeter was a deeply nurturing figure. She cared for the earth the same way she cared for her daughter, with a fierce, protective love. People honored her with the Eleusinian mysteries, secret rituals promising blessings, and maybe even a better afterlife. She wasn't just a goddess of wheat, she was a symbol of life, death, and rebirth itself. Demeter was both gentle and terrifying. If you respected the land, she blessed you with abundance. If not, good luck eating. Aphrodite. Now let's shift from wheat to romance, because Aphrodite was the goddess of love, beauty, and desire, and she played her role spectacularly. Born from the sea foam itself, don't ask too many questions about how that happened, she emerged as the ultimate symbol of attraction. Where Aphrodite went, chaos followed, not because she was cruel, but because love itself can be messy. She had the power to make gods and mortals fall head over heels, sometimes against their will. Imagine Tinder, but you can't swipe left because it's divine intervention. Her love life? Legendary. She was married to Hephaestus, the god of craftsmanship, but her true passion was Ares, the god of war. That affair produced several children, including Eros, the god of love, better known today as Cupid. She also had countless other relationships with both gods and mortals. Basically, if Olympus had a gossip magazine, Aphrodite would be on the cover every week. But don't mistake her for shallow. Aphrodite represented more than just beauty. She embodied the irresistible force of attraction, the bond between people, and even the power struggles that come with desire. From sparking the Trojan War with the judgment of Paris to blessing marriages, Aphrodite's influence stretched from the battlefield to the bedroom. She was dazzling, dangerous, and unforgettable. Because in the end, nobody escapes love. Hephaestus. If the gods were high school stereotypes, Hephaestus would be the quiet genius in the workshop, turning scraps into masterpieces. God of fire, blacksmithing, and craftsmanship, he built the weapons, palaces, and gadgets that kept Olympus running. But his story started rough. Unlike his glamorous siblings, Hephaestus was born lame and was thrown from Olympus, by Hera in some versions, by Zeus in others. He grew up away from the glitz of the divine family, but instead of sulking, he turned his pain into art. With hammer, anvil, and fire, he created wonders no one else could match. Achilles' armor, Hermes' winged sandals, and even Zeus's thunderbolts. Hephaestus wasn't flashy, but he was indispensable. While Ares embodied brute force, Hephaestus represented the brains behind the brawn, the one who made war possible. And yet, despite his brilliance, his personal life was less shiny. His marriage to Aphrodite was a cosmic mismatch. She cheated with Ares, and though Hephaestus once trapped them in a golden net for everyone to see, the humiliation cut deep. But here's the thing: Hephaestus never needed approval. He was the underdog god, the reminder that strength isn't just muscles or beauty, it's resilience, skill, and creativity. And honestly, he made the Olympians look good, literally, with all the armor and palaces he crafted. Hermes. Finally, we come to Hermes, the ultimate multitasker of Olympus. God of travel, trade, communication, luck, and thieves, he was basically the messenger app, GPS, and delivery service of the ancient world rolled into one. From the moment he was born, Hermes was clever. On his very first day of life, he stole Apollo's cattle, then invented the lyre to make peace when he got caught. That's right, day one, and he was already blending mischief with genius. Hermes' signature look included winged sandals and a caduceus staff, which let him zip across the mortal and divine worlds at top speed. He guided souls to the underworld, delivered Zeus's commands, and helped heroes like Perseus on their quests. Basically, if you needed a god who could get things done fast, Hermes was your guy. But don't think of him as just a divine delivery boy. Hermes was also a trickster, full of wit and cunning. He protected travelers and merchants, but also kept thieves and gamblers under his watch. Fair or foul, luck was always in his domain. Playful, resourceful, and unpredictable, Hermes embodied the spirit of movement and change. If the gods had a mascot for adaptability, he'd win every time.